Hey everybody, it's the Millennial Prepster here, and today I'm doing a video for you guys. It's called Vegans Say the Darndest Things. And so I basically, on my journey to search and learn more about veganism, I've come across a lot of content. And I just want to look at this content, from the perspective of who I am as a person. Who am I? I am a permaculturist, I am a homesteader, I care about sustainability, and I'm plant-based. So I'm taking those factors, I guess those biases, if you will, and I'm going to look at what modern day 2018 consumerism vegan looks like and why I don't agree with it. Now I've taken a lot of video snippets, and I don't believe I've taken anything out of context. I think everything's pretty straightforward. But just so we have full transparency, I have went ahead and I have linked everything below. So every video clip, I have linked the entirety of where it came from, so you can take a look for yourself. Because unlike other, YouTube personalities, like, I don't know, Happy Healthy Vegan, who will purposefully take a video out of context and then won't even leave a link for the video in its entirety that he is supposedly berating, I think is very morally wrong and ethically just vile. So I would never do that to you guys. There you go, linked in below. Let me know what you think.
And I think part of the reason why some vegans treat meat eaters so poorly is that in their minds, the meat eaters are responsible for the treatment of these animals.
They are.
But the thing is, most meat eaters do not support animal cruelty. And I think most meat eaters, if they were to see how these animals were being treated, and obviously I'm not saying all animals who are slaughtered for meat in the US or Canada or Britain or Australia are being mistreated, but it does happen. They would want the opportunity to help change that situation, to ensure that there are protections against that kind of treatment.
That's a complete generalization. How many times do you see a meat eater go to a restaurant and ask, where did this patty come from? Like, can you tell me a little bit more about how that animal was treated?
What's the story with the chicken fettuccine?
It's not an episode of Portlandia.
No. If you would like to posit this argument that, well, if you only eat organic, grass-fed, free-range, locally sourced,
humanely raised, humanely killed.
You could argue that, I guess, if you want, but then you wouldn't be able to go to any restaurants, really, or eat over at a friend's house. Do you ever ask, like, oh, you made steaks? Hey, what's the story with the cow, though? No one asks. No one cares. People just like to say that. They say that they wish animals weren't treated as inhumanely as they are.
Yet they continue to buy into the industry.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words. That's what my mom taught me.
So let's start with those annoying vegans. Hashtag I like it. It makes sense. I get it. Great name, by the way. I mean, can I just first start off with that? Anyway, let's dive in. I think that this is great, and this is why I wanted to start with this clip, because they're 100% right. Like, there's no way that I can honestly say that they're wrong. Most meat eaters don't care about, where their food comes from. They want to be completely ignorant of animal agriculture, just like they themselves are purposefully being ignorant of plant agriculture. So yes, if you buy meat from the grocery store, you are culpable with the animal ag industry. Just like if you buy vegetables and plant-based products from the grocery store, you are culpable with the vials of the plant agriculture industry. And let's act like you don't already know. 70% of all child labor happens in plant agriculture. Over hundreds of millions of animals in the United States alone die because of pesticides, intentional poisoning. That's not to mention the amount of land that's completely destroyed to make room for more agriculture practices, such as palm oil, all these many things. So the idea that somehow you can virtue signal is ridiculous. If you buy plants at a grocery store, you support an evil industry. If you buy meat at the grocery store, you support an evil industry. Shame on you. You should be ashamed and you should be embarrassed of yourself. But you're not, because you know what? As long as you can target another group of people, guess what? That's all that matters. And then to caveat that, I will say roaming's onto something. It's so much easier to convince a meat eater to grow their own food and have their own homestead than it is for a vegan. Why? I don't know. Blows my mind. One side of the equation, aka vegans, say, we want to help the environment, we want to do this, we want to do that, but when you give them actual ways they can go about it, they don't want to do it. They don't even want to put a jar of basil in their windowsill, right? So when you're talking about it, roaming does have a point. People that I've come in contact based on my training experience if they're omnivores, they're much more likely to have a garden, much more likely to go out and homestead and provide for themselves than vegans. And you don't believe me? Show me the amount of off-grid vegans versus off-grid omnivores. We'll talk. All right, on to the next one.
And it burns them from the inside out. It's supposed to be a stunning, like a way to stun the pigs first. It sort of reminds me a bit of Auschwitz.
Yeah, right. So, yeah.
So this is 1 to 2 video snippets, I believe, in which we're going to basically talk about how animal agriculture somehow contributed to the National Socialist Party in Germany. And so I think when we're talking about the similarities between animal agriculture and the National Socialist Party of Germany at that time, I'm not here to change your mind. If you truly do believe that the atrocities committed by the National Socialist Party to the Jews are equivalent to what we see in animal agriculture, and you're going to openly criticize animal agriculture for its similarities of the National Socialist Party, I would also have to ask you, well then why aren't you making the same gestures and making the same concerns known about plant agriculture? Because plant agriculture in 2018 is enslaving human beings and intentionally poisoning hundreds of millions of animals. And so if you're going to be mad at one industry for killing animals for food and not mad at plant agriculture that also kills animals for food, it just seems a bit hypocritical to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out into the woods, pick up a plant and eat it.
You don't have to. You can go to Target or Walmart, Walgreens, right?
So of all the video clips, it's this kind of thinking that really causes me to make these videos to begin with. So in this clip, you can see that Earthling Ed basically was telling this gentleman that there's no need to eat meat because you can buy plant-based products from Walmart or Target. You can be a consumer. You can become a consumer vegan and you can spend money on plant-based products that were grown in cancer, because we know that fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides are a class 1 carcinogen. We know Monsanto just lost a $300 million deal, right? They were sued and they lost $300 million because of just one ingredient, glyphosate, which there's tons of other ingredients. We know, according to the Cancer Institute, that fertilizers, pesticides are a class 1 carcinogen, right? So you're telling me that I need to buy plant-based products that are grown in cancer. You're advocating that I buy plant-based products that are grown in cancer with the help of child exploitation, with a body count of over hundreds of millions of animals that died in the process. And then on top of that, the food quality that you're asking me to buy is subpar. It's subpar. It's not even worth my time, money, or effort, or even consideration. So this is what really kind of irks me, because that's what he's advocating. He's not, I don't see him in his videos advocating for growing gardens. If you were a vegan and you're doing that, great, no issue. But they're not advocating for that kind of for that kind of activism. They're asking me to go to Walmart and Target. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like, really, it's disgusting.
Listen up, maggots. You need to understand that no one is holding a gun to your head, forcing you to pay for products that cause millions of animals to die. No one is forcing you to kill animals. In fact, the only thing you need to do to live a cruelty-free lifestyle is, when you go to the supermarket, instead of picking up dead flesh and body parts, pick up the soy chicken, pick up the dairy-free yogurt, pick up the motherfucking Gardein. Try it, it tastes good. So pick up the Gardein, pick up the Beyond Meat. When ordering pizza, take the cheese off or order the vegan cheese. Order the vegan options. When making sandwiches, use Nuttelax or margarine instead of butter, which is dairy, which is literally the product of rape and child abduction. Oh, crazy idea. Leave off the artery clogging oil off altogether and spread some goddamn avocado on instead. Because, and this is a pretty key thing here, when all it takes to stop harming 98% of all innocent animals on this planet, and you don't do it because of fear of what? Change, social scrutiny, a slightly different taste? Please. You are being illogical. You are being cruel. You are being pathetic. You are being just straight up ignorant. You are being a coward. I'm gonna call you out on that shit. It's 2017, bitches. Wake up.
So that was Miss Vegan Asylum's little rant that she went off there. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to call you out, Miss Vegan Asylum. The idea that just because you're buying a plant and it's not an animal, that somehow it's cruelty-free is a huge misnomer. I mean, realistically, like I've already mentioned already, 70% of all agriculture incorporates child labor. That's the child labor market. 70% of it is in agriculture. Hundreds upon hundreds of millions of animals are intentionally poisoned every year so plants can grow, right? So when you're talking about cruelty-free, just because it's not an animal, there's still lots of cruelty and lots of animal deaths involved. So you can't conflate the two. I mean, if you are buying your groceries or you're buying your plant-based products from the store, like Earthling Edge, Joe Carb Strong, those annoying vegans, all these other people, Earthling Ed, when you're doing that, you are responsible and culpable for all that catastrophe. That's what it is. So yes, it is cruel to enslave children. Yes, it is cruel to poison animals. So with that being said, this narrative that just because it's a plant doesn't mean it's cruelty-free. And so that's something that should be, and I believe has to be eventually addressed. So yeah, I'm not going to let you, I can't let you push that false narrative. I have to call you out on it. That's what I did.
What do you think of that, mate?
No, it doesn't surprise me, man.
Doesn't surprise you? Did you know they get killed like that, eh?
No, I didn't, man. But as I said, it doesn't surprise me. If only it was some humans, eh?
You know, the younger generation, man, they're more switched on.
So this is the second video I was talking about that there was some comparisons to the Nazi movement, the National Socialist movement, and then just basically the attributes thereof, right? And so I think it's very interesting because whenever I bring up any kind of rebuttal or any kind of concerns about plant agriculture, as you'll see in another video, people like Joe Carbstrong and others will say, well, two wrongs don't make a right. And I agree. One wrong doesn't make a right either. And so as somebody who shuns both industries, I don't understand why we can't have that conversation, first off. And second off, when you look and you see somebody does advocate for violence against people, there's no, well, two wrongs don't make a right, bro. Like, there's none of that. And which makes sense because if you look at his earlier activism, which I followed in the past, he has made some statements and he has thrown a lot of rhetoric out there in regards to the National Socialist movement and comparing them to people within the animal agriculture industry. So it's no surprise that he has these feelings towards people in that movement, and it's no surprise that he won't tell that person that two wrongs don't make a right. But he has no problem telling me, somebody who opts out of both, two wrongs don't make a right, right? So that makes no sense to me. But people at his level, are going to have people that are part of the ALF within their inner circle, and that mentality and thought process and ideology is something that they definitely are, I'm not saying agree, but are friendly to, at least. And that can be seen based upon his earlier activism, the things he says in the past, currently says, and then the company that he holds. ALF is just an eco-terrorist organization. I'm not here to get into the specifics. I'm not here to get into any kind of justifications or condoning or not condoning or anything like that in regards to that kind of organization. I'm just here to present to you the facts of what is, and you can do with that what you like.
Yeah, I haven't eaten them for years, bro.
Shit. Is it hard, like when you first started?
Well, you just got to know what to do, like what to eat. You can there's heaps of vegan restaurants around, bro, and you just get the alternative, which is
I've had a veggie burger one.
Well, it's not hard to go vegan, bro. You just got to know what to look for and what you're doing, bro. So what you need to do is you need to leave your oil power home, bro, and you need to go to an oil-powered grocery store or restaurant. It's also powered by oil. You need to pay for a plant-based alternative using fiat currency. This plant-based alternative was grown in cancer, sprayed with pesticides, which killed hundreds of millions of other animals. The products were picked and harvested using exploited children, child labor. The product was then shipped across the world using oil, was packaged in oil. Trust me, it's good because a cow didn't die. The end.
The vegetarian movement sucks because harming animals sucks. Harming animals is unacceptable. Animals are like children, they're innocent, they're vulnerable. Why are we not doing everything in our power to protect them the way we protect children? We don't harm children once a week. We don't want to harm animals once a week either.
So there we have it. There's another rant from the Vegan Asylum, and I'm just now noticing as I'm going through and doing my responses and looking at all the snippets, she doesn't wear a lot of clothes in her videos. She's really angry. She doesn't wear a lot of clothes. I don't know. I think there's a better way to do it. Might want to relook at your tactics a little bit. But anyway, yes, Vegan Asylum, the plant industry does hurt and exploit children. They do it every single day. They poison hundreds of millions of animals. That industry causes death, harm, and destruction, all for the purpose of growing food. How do you justify that? How many animals have to die? How many children have to be exploited? What is the justifiable number? That's my only question to you. What is the justifiable number? And I'll say it. I'll say it right here for the whole world to see on the internet, Vegan Asylum. Please, I'm going to ask you, please live up to your morals and don't support industries that hurt and exploit children and poison animals.
Fact that you want to continue eating meat and continue to disconnect yourself from the realities of this horrendous industry.
You could just say it. You could just say, like, I like chicken sandwiches, and I'm going to keep eating chicken sandwiches. You wouldn't have to prove anything.
So, Romy, we have an offer for you. Come visit us in California. We can't pay for your ticket, but you will have free lodging, your own bathroom.
Yep.
We can take you all over the city to the best vegan restaurants, have the best vegan foods. We can take you to the animal sanctuary so you can get to know some of these beautiful creatures in person and learn about them.
So they extended an offer to the roaming millennial, and I believe it's truly genuine. You know, I really do. I think it's a very genuine gesture that they made. Unfortunately, I look at it from obviously my perspective, and it just goes back to this consumer-driven model, and it's just, I'm having a hard time understanding. Like, I really want to understand where it is that you're coming from and what it is that you feel like the moral implication is just so great that veganism, everybody should just turn to it instantly. Because I'm looking at your plate and I see a body count, because there is a body count. Plant agriculture does so much harm. And so the idea that you're somehow going to convince me, or convince anybody for that matter, that, oh, let me take you to a store. Let's use fiat currency to buy plant-based products that has a death count attached to it, and you're going to taste it and you're going to like it and it's just going to be great. Like, I don't understand how that logic is supposed to help the environment, it's supposed to help me or anybody involved. Why would I want to do that, right? And so when you're looking at understanding, you need to understand the industry where your food comes from. Well, there's another option. I know where my meat comes from. I know where my plants come from. You know what I mean? Like, I can point to it. I can look at it. I have interactions with what I'm doing in permaculture. I know the soil. I know the health of the soil. Like, down to the soil and water, I know the health of those items. So when you're talking about putting in all those barriers, when you're talking about buying food from the grocery store and not advocating, it's like, well, you can talk about all you want, but the fact is, I'm more intimate with my food than you. I know where my food comes from. You know, I don't even know the history behind my food. I have heirloom seeds that go back, 4 or 5 generations. You know, my livestock goes back 5 generations. So I know the history of it. I know where it comes from. I know where they live. I know where my plants grow. So I'm really having a hard time understanding how, by going to a vegan restaurant, in which I'm paying fiat currency for food producing cancer, how that's going to somehow change anybody's mind on veganism. Like I said, it's hypocritical. The food in front of you has a body count. The food that I'm going to buy at that vegan restaurant has a body count. You got to do something better. I mean, you got to put up a better argument than that.
I'll talk about bivalves from an ethical sense really quickly. I'll just nutshell what I was talking about. And so they have a nervous system, and who knows, they're probably not fully experiencing every nuance of life and existence, but why would I risk it? You know, they have animal cells in there, they have nerve ganglia, and it's unclear. I have my video where I show them sort of moving around, moving their tongue around. They have a level of awareness, and I just would rather not risk it. I mean, the idea of potentially contributing to the suffering of an animal that probably suffers, maybe doesn't, who knows.
So here Nick, the vegan, is talking about bivalves and basically talking about animals that may or may not have sentience or some kind of consciousness to be able to feel pain. A lot of people talk about bivalves, insects, things of that nature. And so, I mean, the very end statement really says it all. He says, if I don't have to, why would I? Like, why would I risk it? Well, when you buy plants from the grocery store, you're not just risking it, you are exploiting children, and you are killing hundreds of millions of animals due to intentional poisoning, and you're getting a lower quality food. Why risk it?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the reality of it is over 90% of animals come from factory farms that we eat, because they have to keep up with demand. They can't possibly treat every animal really good to keep up with demand. These are commodities. These are products. They're not individuals, you know. So
it's not right. No, it's just dirty. Just that these people must be so desensitized to it all.
Well, they get people that are mentally not right to do the job, because normal compassionate human beings couldn't do it.
Oh no, I can't even go. You know, I wouldn't even talk to someone about going hunting.
So that's what we try to explain to people. Like, if it's not good enough for your eyes, then how could it be good enough to eat? I mean, it's just because we're so detached from.
So I think I think this video snippet is profound for two reasons. One that I totally agree with, and another one that I obviously don't agree with. So the first one is the one I don't agree with. You know, I'm somebody that I think intentionally poisoning an animal to eat a plant, I think that's morally wrong. You know, I think it's wrong to exploit children. I think if you're not willing to poison the animal, poison the earth, exploit the child yourself, you probably shouldn't be eating that broccoli, carrot, strawberry, insert random food item there. So yeah, I think that's horrible. But I'm also the same person that will dispatch an animal to consume it, to eat it. So according to his mind, you know, I have mental illness. I'm not mentally right? So I think that's wrong, because it's just you're vilifying people based upon your own predisposition, because you have no problem with animals dying because of animal agriculture. In fact, it's justified. You won't give a justifiable amount of debt, but it's just justified. But somebody that does it, you know, for themselves in order to have high quality food, it's, you know, mentally ill. So it's easy to vilify those people. So when somebody does come up and say, well, that guy's an omnivore, he should be put and he should be killed in a gas chamber. That's where you saw earlier, he has no problem going, you know, so it's just, you know, okay, that's where you can see where that mentality, his mentality is. But then again, he has no problem contributing to an industry that kills hundreds of millions of animals, exploits children, etc. So it's a very hypocritical statement. The next thing is the fact that animals are a commodity in animal agriculture. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely factually consistent with the reality of what is. But the same thing with plants. That's why it's so easy for people to poison hundreds of millions of animals and exploit children, because if the plant product is a commodity. When you're talking about commodities in these industries, you're talking about highest yield. So in order to, you know, in order to address those issues, you have to be an outside-the-box thinker. And I think that's where permaculture perfectly comes in, because I'm not trying to produce mass amounts of quality food to sell. I'm doing it for sustainability. I'm doing it for myself. So quality means way more to me than yields. I want the highest quality because I'm consuming for myself. I have no ambition in selling what I grow. So I think we have to look at food differently. And so I think this video gives a great avenue for me to discuss those two things.
Now for what might be some of the most amazing moral gymnastics she pulls in the video.
And issue number 3 I have with vegans is that you often conflate meat eaters with the meat industry.
She really wants to believe that there's this imaginary line absolving her of the atrocities committed to animals. Sorry to break it to you, but any given industry is defined by their customers. It exists because of their customers, and meat eaters are willing to buy factory farm meat without complaining or pressuring the industry.
I guess it's the disconnect though, isn't it? Because you're not directly like killing that animal. Like that, if you don't buy that product, someone else is going to buy it and it still dies.
It's all about the disconnect. That's what this is. We're helping people connect. We're going, okay, there's something that happens in between when you put that burger in your mouth and when you purchase it. So your money goes to the hand of the hitman. They do the hit for you. You get the burger. Bang. The next day you get another bang. Hitman. Boom. Pay the hitman. He kills the animal. You get a burger. Supply and demand. That's why we talk to consumers. We don't.
So I combine these two clips together because I think it's super important. They're pretty much saying the same thing. Yeah, you're totally right. When you are buying into animal agriculture, you are supporting that system of industry. And when you're buying plants from the plant industry, you are supporting that industry. So if you're vegan and you're buying, you know, plant-based products, you are supporting child enslavement. You are supporting intentional poisoning of hundreds of millions of animals. You are getting a lower grade quality food product purposefully. You know, you're doing all those things. And so if you're not willing to poison the animal, poison the earth, enslave the children in order to get your food products, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because just like there's hitmen in the animal agriculture, there's also hitmen in the plant agriculture. So, I mean, call it what you want. That's the reality of the world that you're currently living in. So, you know, I'd hope you at least take a second thought to the implications of your dollar.
Tasha and Luca, they're doing world tours right now. They're buying all sorts of airplane tickets to fly all over the world to do vegan workshops. Now, on those airplanes, there might be leather seats or other animal products or animal foods being sold to people. So you could argue that by buying an airplane ticket, you're contributing a small percentage to animal suffering. But if it's impossible for you to fly from the United States to Europe on a vegan airplane, then that's fine. I mean, it fits the definition.
Veganism is about the best you can do.
So I think this definition of veganism is really not helpful at all, because based upon this definition, the definition being veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude as far as is possible and practical, both of which are subjective terms that are based upon the person using them. They can decide, obviously, what is possible and practical for their situation. All forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. So when you're looking at the example that they give about a couple that is going on doing vegan workshops all over the world, I imagine they're depending on animal agriculture, they're depending on FAA, they're depending on other industry, aviation, businesses, and assets, which does contribute to a lot of, especially bird deaths, environmental impact. I mean, this goes without saying. So the fact that it's justifiable for them to depend on plant agriculture, which exploits children, kills hundreds of millions of animals, produces low-quality products, destroys the rainforest, all these different things, right? So that's justifiable because they're doing vegan workshops. It's practical because they're doing vegan workshops. But somebody like me, who is a permaculturist from the, blue zone values, it's not practical for me to decide, you know what, that industry is bad. We all know it's bad. It's factually bad. I want to opt out of that system. I want to grow my own food. I want to raise my own animals. But that's somehow bad, and I can't justify it. That's not practical. But it's practical for you to tell me to go to the grocery store and buy low-quality food, like, again, contributes to all this evil. It makes absolutely no sense, and that's the problem, because based upon this definition, I am technically a better vegan than 99% of all vegans. If you take the exploitation, you take all forms of cruelty in my lifestyle versus the annoying vegans couple from LA here, I am far higher on the scale of being moral and reducing my carbon footprint and reducing cruelty. It's day and night. So when we're talking about this, it's really important that we be intellectually honest with ourselves, and vegans aren't intellectually honest. I mean, most of them aren't. And so when you're looking at this, and even she at the very end states, it's about doing our best. Well, do you really feel like you're doing your best? Because from what you're showing me, it doesn't seem like you're doing a whole lot of anything but consuming more consumer goods and somehow saying that that's somehow virtuous. So, like I said, I don't understand it. I think this definition, just muddies the water even more, because what is possible and practical is going to be different for every person. But if you're a vegan and you're going and you're flying and you're depending on plant agriculture, that's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about the animal deaths. Don't worry about the child exploitation. It's somehow justifiable because insert fallacy here. But when a permaculturist doesn't depend on the system, eats a fish every now and then, oh, you're a horrible person. That's not justifiable. You can't justify it. You go to Walmart. Like, come on, you can't. I mean, that's not intellectually honest at all. So, I think that's something that we really need to, talk about and, have discussion on, because I think it's an important point to make. And I think Kal-El did a really good job of bringing a vegan audit to light and just being very honest about the implications. I understand this video is a smear campaign, but like I'm saying, and like I'm showing and with what I'm doing, when you actually add real life common sense to these arguments, they don't hold water.
Next point you make is that farmers kill animals to cultivate crops. That's true just by the mere fact of existing. We're going to displace some wildlife. Every plant food has a body count, but that doesn't mean we should maximize the body count by killing and raping and torturing billions of animals on top of the animal deaths in agriculture. Just because animals die by our existence doesn't mean we should maximize the suffering. 50% of the world's crops are put aside to feed to livestock anyway, so you're killing more animals.
So that's how we're going to end this video on that note. I think, like I said, any vegan, and Joe's just being honest here, any vegan that's been a vegan for 5 minutes knows that there's a body count associated with every plant product that you buy. That's just the reality of it. Like he said, animals will be displaced. By our mere existence, animals are going to die, so why up the body count? I agree. We don't need animal agriculture. We also need plant agriculture. There is no need and there's no justifiable reason to spray cancer on food products that you're going to feed to people and animals. There's no need for it. There's no need to exploit children in order to get your food products. There's no reason, there's no justifiable reason for it. Just tell me, what is the body count? What is the justifiable body count? Because at the end of the day, if you're intellectually honest with yourself, this idea of a consumer-based driven vegan movement doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help the environment, doesn't help you, doesn't help anybody. I'm sorry, the idea that I'm supposed to eat cancer-grown vegetables that's somehow going to be more healthy for me than what I'm currently doing now is ridiculous. The idea that somehow we can just buy and purchase our way using capitalism out of this problem is a misnomer. At the end of the day, your dollar is your vote, and we've established that. If you pay into the plant agriculture industry, you're directly paying for animal agriculture by default, and you're paying for all the other issues and vile things that happen from plant agriculture. So yes, your dollar is your vote, but your labor is your legacy. As always, guys, long live the Republic.
There's over probably 150 species here locally, including mushrooms, plants and animals, that mostly feral or weed species that we incorporate into our diet every day. We haven't eaten out of the supermarket industrial food system for 8 or 9 years.
We can't be self-sufficient here on a quarter acre. And even if we could, we wouldn't want to be. We talk about it in terms of community sufficiency, not self-sufficiency.